guys so much for coming tonight. I'm always in awe when people show up to these girl talks, so thank you so much. If some of you do not know, my name is Nicole D. Miller. I'm an author, writer, blogger, speaker. I have a hybrid book publishing company, Indie Miller Publishing. We help indie authors manifest their book dreams. And I do some freelance journalism, and I also host Girl Talk. So, Girl Talk is a safe space for female leaders. Come here, leave your cape at the door. This is a time for us to enter into dialogue. You'll hear from our panelists tonight on women who bounce back, and then there will be a time for Q&A from the audience. So expect to share if there's something on your heart or to ask whatever questions are in your heart. We have various faiths and beliefs, but we respect everyone, so just be considerate of everyone and where they're at. But it's really about us forming our sisterhood and having inner healing through dialogue. So I'm going to open up the panel for everyone to introduce themselves.
So I get for sitting to the right. Hi everyone, I'm Jenna. I am a brand strategist. I own Blue Blue Studio, and I'm just super excited to be here. And we were talking about how we're a part of like the very first Girl Talk you've ever hosted. I was a part of that, so it's a full circle moment for me, and I'm super excited to just be a part of this panel and this discussion.
I'm Butter. Nice to meet you. I own Ink Therapy Studio. I do tattoos. I'm a tattoo artist, but I'm a creative as well. I have a gallery with my artwork out there. I also hand crochet these. I do a plethora of things. I also wrote a book, Layers of Ink Breaking Skin, which Nicole was my editor for my book. I do poetry. I'm a poet, traveling poet, and I perform as well. And I'm a mom, so I have 3 boys. So yes, that is me.
Hello everyone, I am Lisa Evans. I am also a mom, new mom. She is 3.5 months, almost 4. Thank you. I'm a wife. I am also a blogger. I work full time at Cleveland State in marketing. I also have a candle company that I'm hoping to kind of revive next year in 2025. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Secret. I too was a part of Nicole's Girl Talk way back when, so I'm excited to be here on the panel as well. I am a full-time registered nurse, and then I also have a clothing brand on the side where I sew and I embroider just about everything. I'm trying to really branch into that and hone into the prom season and getting these girls some affordable prom dresses and keep them looking good and customized. That's me. Oh, I am a mom too.
I'm also a new mom. She's right over there. You guys greeted her. Precious. She's waving. So I do want to share with you guys. I'm so excited to hear from all of these women. I attract amazing women doing amazing things. So if you're in this space, it's because you're an amazing woman doing an amazing thing. So there's a quick call and response I kind of want to do before we get started with the panel. So I'll say, who's ready for some? And you guys will say, girl talk, okay? So on the count of 3, we're going to try this. 1, 2, 3. Who's ready for some girl talk? Perfect. See, amazing. You guys are so intelligent. So again, this panel discussion is women who bounce back. Everyone has a powerful story here of overcoming adversity in various areas. So I'm going to ask the question. We'll go in order. If you don't feel comfortable answering, feel free to just say pass. So the very first question is, what is your definition of bouncing back and why? Maybe we should start down there first.
Okay, so to me, my definition of bouncing back is being able to adapt, but not only being able to adapt to just every tumultuous situation that could come up, but also learning how to thrive in those situations. So for me, bouncing back is when you hit rock bottom, but you slingshot back up.
Okay, slingshot poet.
To me, similar to what Secret said, yeah, my definition is experiencing, traumatic event or situation and being able to recognize it and move forward and heal. Not necessarily be back to who you were or whatever the circumstances were previously, but I think forging a new path and finding a new way forward.
I think bouncing back is something I'm very familiar with. It's about pushing through adversity and picking yourself up after your newfound growth. So, like, everyone's going to what they consider as failing. I don't consider that failing. I consider it as a lesson. And as long as you can understand that you can pick yourself back up and continue and restart and do something better, that is bouncing back. Because I think we bounce back every day. We're never the same person. So that's what I feel like bouncing back is.
I would definitely agree with a lot of what you guys said. I think it's when you're going through hardship, you're going through tough times that kind of take you out and you don't feel like you'll get through it, and somehow you do, and sometimes you transform through that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think for me, it's what's coming up is like the resiliency. And there's this piece of like, especially as a business owner and entrepreneur, it's like, you're going to get in the ring and you're going to get knocked down at least once, if not many times. And so, but can you bounce back? Can you really build a resiliency around that? And I actually used to say a few years ago, like, okay, you know what? Took a loss. My bounce back rate is 100%. I will always bounce back. So, yeah.
All right, so that was the easy question. I didn't want to just like jump in and go deep, but we do have the tissues because I don't learn. We need the tissues. Okay. Next question. What difficult experiences can you pinpoint in your journey that were life-defining and caused you to become a better version of yourself?
I think I have a long answer for that one. My entire life. Seriously. I don't know where to pick one. I think we spoke on this before. I was in a very extremely domestic marriage. That taught me a lot about myself. It taught me about how strong I really am, and you have to be. It taught me about, understanding having faith. It taught me how important I was because it wasn't just about me, it was about saving my children. Getting my business, it taught me a lot about just the world because I had no information. I was so ignorant to business, getting a brick and mortar, just handling everything outside of being a mom, handling the world. So everything made me grow. Like every day, everything I've been through made me grow into a better person because you have to really dive deep and be like, all right, I put myself in this, now I have to do it. So I would say between that and just raising my kids, like they teach me every day. So I really believe that life in itself, coming into contact with different women, different people in my life, it betters me all the time. So
Yeah, I think for me, I have a few kind of pivotal moments in my life. One stemming from me being adopted at 10 months old. I think that was the start of the just series of events that I've had to bounce back from because being adopted, really no matter how old you are, because I have a biological sister who's 10 months younger than me, and she was adopted from birth, and we have similar struggles, even though she was never lived with our biological family. So being adopted it seems like it's an automatic start at negative because you have this abandonment being pulled away from your biological parents, which is traumatic in itself. So on top of that, I experienced abuse in that home for those 10 months before I was adopted. And that really started my series of having to bounce back because I've always struggled with abandonment issues and identity and all of those things, which impacted a lot of the behaviors that I got into as a teenager and young adult, to the point where at 17 I tried to commit suicide. So, having to bounce back from that, and then going to college and not doing well in college, having to come back home and start over, those series of events kind of really shaped me into who I am, though they were very traumatic that I've had to deal with as a young person, but they really helped me to learn how to be resilient.
So very similar to Lisa. I feel like, or really somebody, I think all of us, honestly, I feel like the experiences were lifelong. Just being born as a woman and then being born as a black woman down south, it has always been an experience or something for me to bounce back from. For me personally, uh, I experienced sexual assault from a very young age, and with that, a child came. So, I had to bounce back from being the 19-year-old mom to raise a child and not really wanting to have kids, but also not knowing how to have kids or how to be a mother. And so, when you're bouncing, that experience in itself kind of it caused me to bounce back, but then it also caused me to further experience more trauma because you then don't know your worth. And then you have to find that. Then you have to build that. I have tissue. I'm always just a crybaby.
And tears are healing.
Yeah.
They are, and that's why I cry because I've always been so tough. I have never cried as much as I've cried in the past year. I'm 31. When I turned 30, I started crying. So before then, I was not a crier. I grew up in a household full of all boys. I'm the only girl amongst brothers. My parents decided at 18 to have a girl, so I was never allowed to cry. I was never allowed to be sensitive. So I cry now, but before, no, I was rough and tough with my Afro puffs. But that experience was one of the experiences that I feel like snowballed, and then my most recent experience was, when me and my fiance split, and that was like supposed to be my forever, and you think that you went through all of this, and oh, this is what it was for, but then that for becomes just another added trauma. So that was the experience actually that started my bounce back, because once I hit rock bottom, it was, where else could I go?
Thank you for your vulnerability. It's so needed. Like, we need to unearth those things in our bodies. I feel like they can become toxic if we're not releasing them. So.
Yeah, thank you, ladies, because just in like the short time that you were talking, I'm like, okay, that gave me the confidence to like actually go there and like open up, right? And I think we all kind of have those deep moments. So for me, I think one of the most pivotal things that defined who I am now, like who's made me who I am now, is I've been on my own since 17. And when you look back and you're like entering the world at such a young age and don't know where you're going or what you're doing, you just operate in survival mode. And you can make some really cool things happen in survival mode, but I don't think that's the goal. The goal is to really live a life that's within this realm of thriving. And last year for me, I took my foot off the brake, and I had never given myself a break since 17, actually since about 15. I've been working full time. Last year I stopped working, and I just, I think I maybe worked 10 hours a week, if that, for a whole year. It was like the biggest gift ever. And it really, like you had said, like it introduced me to this piece of like, oh, I actually am worthy of a soft life. Like I'm worthy of it. And it took 34 years, within that path to be able to accept that for myself, so yeah.
Wow, I'm definitely going to use that term, worthy of a soft life. And I just feel like we all have kind of had these struggles of feeling unworthy, whether it was abandonment or rejection or neglect. I'll share. I think the first major big thing that I was not as consciously aware of was my father not being in my life. I definitely see how that impacted me as a child and my dating choices and experiences. So as a young woman, I fell in love and chose a man like my father, but I didn't know my father, so I didn't know that. And it was toxic and unhealthy and almost shattered me, but it inspired my very first book, How to Overcome Heartbreak, Recovering from Misguided Love. So that was God showing me that he would turn my pain into purpose. Another big event that happened that helped shape me was losing a really dear friendship. So we were very entangled in each other's lives. But because I had shifted from my breakup to that friendship, I had a lot of codependency. I didn't even know that word at the time, right? So it was me reading these books, Holy Spirit leading me to the right counseling sources for me to even look at my issues, attracting these unhealthy friendships and relationships. I definitely felt like letting go of different relationships, male relationships that I wanted, breakup after breakup after breakup. And then, of course, my mother transitioning was huge. So I feel like facing these different big losses in my life kind of brought me to my knees. But then tapping into my community, tapping into my faith, and taking it one day at a time helped me have a space to birth something beautiful, which is my businesses, the creative writing. I would say in my career, there was a really, really hard shift at the last company that I worked for. I was facing a lot of racism. I was being minimized. I was being overworked. And that experience was very traumatic, and it literally happened right before my mother's transition. So that season by itself was difficult. I had something called fibroids, which a lot of women deal with, a lot of black women deal with. So I was dealing with, am I gonna have children, having to have surgery. So I just think like sometimes the perfect storm can happen in our lives. But for me, I'm just grateful that there's always been these anchors of my community and my faith to keep me rooted and grounded. So, the next question, what are characteristics and tools you've used that are reoccurring in each trial you've had that aided you to bounce back? Say that question. Okay. What are characteristics and tools you've used that are reoccurring in each trial you've had that aided you to bounce back? And the reason I ask this is because I think when you're a successful person or a resilient person, there's things that you do naturally that you don't even analyze, right? Yeah. But it causes you to be successful, and other people are not aware, like they're struggling, like what did you do? And you just kind of did it like breathing. So I just kind of wanted us to look at ourselves and be like, what did I do that helped me get through that?
I have a couple of things I do realize that I do. I'm sure there's a lot that I don't. Number one is I look at my kids. I realize that they're watching me all the time. They are literally my everything. I will talk about them to the earth's end. But just watching them and knowing how they watch me and how loving they are. I'm like the luckiest woman in the world, I swear. I really am. They're so beautiful. But just knowing that their lives were in my hands at some point. They're grown now, but that was my responsibility. No matter how hard I wanted to quit, like at my wit's end, where I didn't feel like I had no more purpose here. They were the only things I could hold on to. And it was like, well, who would be dealing with them? You know how no one could clean your house like you could clean your house? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, nah, you ain't gonna take him to his games like that, never mind. You don't even know what he like to eat, like never, okay, you know what, I need to just stick around, because this ain't gonna work, because I can't leave my kids on the right. Another thing that I realized my go-to is my art. My art has been my world where I belong. When I didn't feel like I belonged, I always created something. Like everyone's like, what don't you do? And it's like, I don't do a lot, but I'll try anything. And it literally gives me a sense of peace. And I used to be like, why do I pick like the hardest stuff to do all the time? Like I can't come up with nothing simple like the dude that made the little umbrellas and the drapes. You know what I mean? Like I can't just get a toothpick and some paper and be like, yo, I'm a millionaire. Everything I do is tedious, but it's created from everything I'm going through. And it's something really beautiful comes out of it. And then I get to touch other lives, and then it gives me my purpose. So right now, I get to literally touch the lives of people throughout the entire world that share a piece of me. And in return, they get to share a piece of them with me. So my art is literally like, I call myself an international mobile museum because I have piece of me, and I know I left a mark on the world, and that's what keeps me going.
So one of the characteristics I believe I picked up during my time with my biological family was kind of being a fighter, being kind of stubborn, headstrong, which can be, everything can be negative and everything can be positive. But I picked up that characteristic because my biological parents were not around. even to give me food. So I had to find food wherever I could. And I remember my adoptive mom, who I'll call my mom, she would tell me when I when I moved with them that I would like hide food because I was so used to doing that in my home because they weren't feeding me, they weren't really giving me attention. So that really created a very strong young woman, and I believe even subconsciously that's what I used to get through all of these situations, because it's like I realized it was just me. You know, I had, even at a young infant newborn, I only could rely on myself. Now that can be very toxic at times because that's my go-to. That's what I turn to in my marriage, in my relationship with my parents, my family and friends. I just go back to that place of it's just me. So I don't have another choice. I have to keep going with what I feel I need to do. So that's a characteristic that I believe I picked up. And I use it for positive because I'm realizing that it's a positivity about me. Left unchecked, it can become negative. The other tool that I use is my faith in God. And even when I didn't even know God, He was there, because there's no way you can tell me all of the things I've been through, trying to commit suicide and surviving, that God wasn't, God in my path and He was with me. So I also use Him as a tool to get through those tough times, because the voices that I heard when I didn't know it was God telling me to keep going, telling me that you are worthy, even though I wouldn't believe it. It kept me going through those hard times.
It's just so amazing hearing just different stories, because we've all encountered each other at some point in time, but we don't know each other.
Right.
And so it's amazing to hear these stories and then think in my head like, oh, this I relate. Okay. Because for me it's the same. My kids were always a driving force for me, more so because of the fact that who's gonna raise them like me? Nobody even raised me, so who's gonna raise my kids like me? And then also God, I have recently turned to religion and started building my own personal relationship with God. Though I was raised in the church, I'm a preacher's kid, but I steered very far away from the church, just because what happens in the church. But for me, the crazy thing about it is spite. Spite has been my tool, because you will never catch me in the same spot you thought you left me in. So I know it might sound bad, but that really has been what it was for me. I have always been counted out. I have always been looked over. I have always just been the underdog my entire life. I'm okay with that because I've always excelled. Just because I know that there's someone out there that's saying she ain't gonna do it. And I know that when I hit rock bottom a few years ago, I know that there was a lot of people saying, I was the villain. I was the big bad wolf. And I was okay with that. I wore that cape for a very long time. I just decided 2 days ago, I'm done being your villain. But it was spite. Spite got me through. Spite helped me graduate. Spite helped me get my bachelor's. Spite helped me be a better mom. Spite helped me buy that house, lose the house, buy another one. Spite. Because I just don't care what you gonna say about me. If I'm gonna be a bad guy, I'm gonna be the best one.
I respect that so much. I learned last year in my off year about rage, and that rage deserves a seat at the table too, and she's very powerful, and there needs to be space for her in your life too. That's very healing. So the big thing for me, I think, was boundaries. Setting the boundaries of what works for me, what serves me, and what doesn't serve me, and what doesn't work for me. And if someone in my life doesn't respect that or understand that, then they don't get to be a part of this like magic that I am and that I'm creating every day. And then also either completely they don't get to be a part of it, or they can love from afar. And so it's made my road kind of lonely, to be honest. But I'm also really full from this place of like, I've created a life and a space that's peaceful, because why don't we get to live that way, right? But it meant really setting some hard boundaries for people who don't want to respect that. And so, you get to be okay with that. And so I really made peace with that around the boundaries that I've set, because it's the self-respect that I have from that, the trust that I gained from that, the love, the self-love that I've gained from that. So that's my answer.
So I definitely resonate with everything you guys said. I feel like there's a theme of the type of person who kind of endures. I think there's this natural tenacity and fire that we carry, and my godmom and I were kind of talking, and I was going through something really difficult, and she's just like, how are you just, the word she used was like tenacious. Like, you just won't let it go. Like, she's like, other people would have just walked away, but you just keep. I'm like, I don't know, there's just this thing for justice in me, and I know you've used the word scrappy, so that was going through my head listening to them share. It's like, and I get it. Seeker, when you were like, despite, like, I don't know if it's because I'm an Aries or what, but I am like, I will win. Especially after a breakup. Like, you will not see me slipping. And next time you see me, I'm going to be better. That's just what it's going to be. I'm going to win. Okay? So anyways, all of that was going on in my head. But, the professional answer is that mental health is a big deal. And I know we kind of chatted, like, about those things in our lives. I really had to learn how to build up my resistance in my mind. Being a very emotional person, I think a lot of creatives are more emotional because we're very intuitive and in touch with that part of who we are. But your emotions can have you every which way, especially when you're going through something. So I've been through very, very dark seasons of almost losing my mind and really having to fight and develop that grit of capturing my thoughts, asking where did this thought come from. Doing the hard work with my mental health has really helped me in enduring. And that kind of like leads me into the next question. What were some of the low parts before you transitioned into bouncing back? Was there depression, suicidal thoughts, low self-esteem, self-harm? And what helped to break you out of that state? So kind of lead us through the transition of I'm down and out, but you ain't just pop up. Like, what happened?
So I'm gonna start that because I know Lisa just spoke about how she attempted suicide at 17. From the age of 12 until 26, I had tried to commit suicide multiple times, and very depressed. I had to be committed several times because it was just that bad. But it wasn't in the sense of I did not want to be here. It was more so in the sense of I just wanted it to stop. And Nicole made a lot of sense when she just said that creatives are a lot more intuitive. And I am. I've always been the person who feels everything that everyone goes through, and then I try to fix it because I feel it, but I don't know why I feel it. So I'm trying to fix it, but then that pushes them further away, and now that just triggers my abandonment issue. And now I go down this spiraling tunnel of, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable, I'm this, I'm that, and I just completely tear myself down. Somehow in the tearing of that down, I do end up bouncing back, but it's the fact that I had to hit so many rock bottoms before I could ever even catapult myself into my next phase. So for me, it was a very long stint of depression and suicide attempts and a lot of mental health. If it wasn't for getting the mental health portion of it right, I don't think I would still be here. So definitely take care of your mental health, because as a creative, as a strong person, and as a person who has had to bounce back, and that goes for everybody, you will experience those points of feeling like, what are you here for? But it's in those moments that you have to take a look back at everything that you did achieve, because if you remember that one time where it felt like it was all over, but now you look back at that time and you can't even remember how it felt. You remember the time, but you don't remember how it felt. That's the moment that you need to think about every single time. And that's kind of what helped me get through a lot of my moments too.
I'll share on this. I feel like, so I have ADHD, I'm neurodiverse, and I just learned this about myself, and like, that I'm not crazy, and that just my mind just works different, last couple of years. So I've really been doing a lot of healing and had a lot of grace around what that means and how I operate and all of that. But I think, before really understanding that that's where I was, there was a lot of times where I really had moments where, I was just constantly told I was wrong, like I operate wrong, and like I'm doing things wrong, I'll never keep a corporate job, I'll never do this, I'll never do that. And it really kind of beats you down. If you're constantly hearing these like same messages over and over, you start to believe them, even when you're really, really resilient, you know? And so there's these pieces where it's like, okay, what gets to contribute to how I take care of my mind? And for me, it's been really diving deep into like, okay, do I believe all of these messages I'm receiving right now are true? And really questioning the truth of what's happening in my head and in my heart. And most of it's bullshit, to be honest. Like, it's bullshit from other people, and it's bullshit about the stuff you make up in your own head. And so, I think therapy's great, but for me, my road's really been a lot of like emotional intelligence training and leadership training, and really diving deep into even in the woo. I don't know if you're into woo, but like the ancestral healing side of things. Like, I've learned a lot about the women on my dad's line, and healed a lot of things there. And so there's just these pieces around where I think like when you're in these dark places, like really questioning the space that you take up in the world, and that you're here for a reason, even if you don't know it yet, and also like what pieces can you seek out to support you in that, whether it's faith, whether it's ancestral work, whether it's woo and go sit under the moon. I'm all for it, right? Like whatever helps you, and it doesn't matter how crazy it looks to someone else. You got to take care of you, and within that, you can really truly heal some beautiful, deep wounds, deeper than anyone's ever really going to see on the outside. So, yeah.
What got me out? I get irritated. Like, okay, so let me explain. I'm a Taurus. People think it's stubborn. They think we're stubborn. Let me explain this for all the Taurus. Let me explain it for all the Taurus. We're not. I think y'all take stubbornness wrong. I think that we can be so indecisive and such creatives that once we make up our mind, it's like, no, you don't understand. I've processed this. I've worked through it. I've went through every detail of how it's going to be. It's burning inside of me. I have to do it now. So what helps me get out of my rut myself, I'm a deep empath. So I also had to teach myself how not to take in all the energies, because I'm trying to figure out, is this really my stuff or is it someone else's? Because I'm trying to help everyone. I can feel when something's wrong. I can say, I'm not like psychic or nothing. I could be like, it's gonna be all right. Like, I know you're hurting and you're hiding it. You're masking that right now. You know what I mean? It's gonna be okay. Like, you're trying to be extra strong, but it's okay to not be okay right now. And I could feel that, so I have to remember not to mix that with what's inside of me. But in the midst of all of this, I'm still trying to deal with all that I got going inside of me. And then it's like, all right, you sat around for 5 days. This is stupid. You gotta take a shower, you gotta clean your house, you ain't making no money, the kids asking for stuff, you get irritated because they keep asking for stuff and telling them it's gonna work it out. Okay, you know what, just get up, we just gotta fix this. And it's always that, so that's what gets me moving. So that's how I create, because I'll get these ideas and then I get irritated with myself for sitting around, because I gotta figure out how to execute this idea I have. It's literally a disorder. My mind is always running with heavy traffic. And so I have to create something, because whatever I was processing in my head that I could foresee, this hoodie, I swear to God, once I seen a picture of a hoodie and I was like, yo, I need to make it. I sat in bed like this till 4 in the morning for a couple days. I wasn't getting no sleep, because I was like, yo, how we gonna do this? Okay, I don't even know how to read patterns. I gotta make this up. All right, you know what? Just go do it. And so now I'm up moving. Now my mind is busy. Now I'm not thinking about all the heavy stuff that I have in life to deal with. I can't sit around and craft, because my heart is solely deep into something that I had to create, and that keeps me going. And in return, I'm getting blessed to be able to take care of my children through my skill set that helps save my mental capacity to be able to keep going. And that's literally what drives me till this day. It gets exhausting, for real, but I have to do that. I recently talked to Nikki about some downtime I had. She came in and I was just like, yo, I don't never really like to just be negative because I'm the one that takes in everybody's stuff and talk to them about everything they're going through. And I just started crying like, I don't know what's wrong. I'm so sorry. She was like, no, it's okay. I'm like, because I'm peaceful right now. I'm good. But being strong and being okay all the time, you're not cleansing yourself. And I got heavy as hell. Like I was just like in my car, like I'm so confused. It's to the point where I don't even have an answer for anything. Like, what's wrong? I don't know. I don't have an answer. But then I have to create something. And then I have to remember all the things that happened to me before. How did things work out? Like, there's been so many instances where God was just like, you know what? All right, take your arm off for a second. I'm gonna hand you this. Go ahead, you got it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I still don't know how I have this building. I don't know. Till this day, I cannot answer you how I have this building, but God. Like, how am I maintaining it? I don't got no artists in here. My nephew just joined me at the end of last year, but he don't really pay me shit. Like he just rolling through. My kids roll through. You know, I have events once in a while. I don't know how I have it, but God. And when I'm having the worst time, I have to remember He gave you this, so now you got purpose. There's a reason why you're here. Y'all here. I'm here for a reason, and that's what picks me up.
So the question was, how do we bounce back now?
How do you
And
get through those dark moments of depression, suicidal thoughts, low self-esteem? What were some of the low points? Kind of walking us through low points.
yes, so I have experienced suicidal thoughts, depression. When I attempted suicide at 17, I was hospitalized and diagnosed with depression. So I had to go on medication, and so yes, I dealt with suicide, but praise God, I haven't had a suicidal thought or attempt since that day. That's all God. That's all thanks to God, because it's all God. And so, yes, experiencing depression, anxiety. I also was recently diagnosed with ADHD about 3 years ago. So that helped a lot, put a lot of my life into perspective, because you do, like Jenna was saying, you feel like you're wrong a lot of the times because you just do things differently, and that affects your self-esteem. So I have experienced very low moments where I felt like I was by myself. And the only thing I can really think of is God really getting in there with me, where I'm like crying in the bed, like by myself, and He's comforting me, saying, I'm with you, you are worthy, I am here with you, I'm your Father. That's the only voice besides my own and the enemy that I could really hear, and Him being able to pick me up the next day to keep going. My husband wrote a book a few years ago called One Day at a Time. And it's just about talking about how taking the next step the next day, one day at a time, instead of trying to accomplish everything at once, just taking the step to go to the next day really will help you move towards your progression, your space of progression. And I think that's what helped me, is God comforting me in those moments where I am feeling depressed, where I am having anxiety, and getting me to that space of, okay, one day at a time, next day, the next day, the next day, to really come out of that place and bounce back.
Thank you guys for sharing. I have two moments that kind of stand out to me, pretty heavy. So I went through a really rough time in my mental health, like I shared before, for about a good year. And I feel like the way, when I go through things, I don't wear it. Right? So it's just like, I just don't look like some of the hardships I've experienced. And during this time, my mental health was so bad, I remember sitting across from a friend. It just felt like rats were eating my brain. But like, I look good on the outside, I could hold a conversation, but it was like that every day for a year. And I was talking to my mom about it, like, Mom, have you ever experienced anything like this? And she was like, yeah, but I just don't think we knew what to call it, so they didn't have language, so, they resorted to substance abuse or acting out or unhealthy behaviors. And one night, it was so bad, I was afraid I would kill myself. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself. And it was 2 a.m, and I called my spiritual mom, and she picked up, and she talked to me for 7 hours straight. It was such a battle over my life that night. And I never understood why. I was like, Lord, I haven't been through X, Y, and Z. Why is this happening? And I'm glad you brought up the ancestral DNA because that's what was revealed. It was in my DNA. It was the trauma my ancestors were facing in the slave ships. I was like, this is crazy. But I was called to heal. I was called to walk out healing, which I did and I had to fight for. So that was one major experience. The next one was the pandemic. My mother transitioned, dealing with excessive loneliness, grief, and trauma, and couldn't find a purpose, right? We keep going back to that. What is my purpose? And crying out to God one day, and all of a sudden, my body got up. I did not have control of my body. Got up, put on some workout clothes, and went to the gym. And that was a tool to help me renew my mind, get the endorphins kicking. It didn't, it wasn't the answer to everything, but it was a great outlet. Like working out was a great outlet to help me take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And then, of course, the creativity. So when I wrote When Love Wins, it was like falling in love. I never had that experience outside of a man or Jesus, and all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in love with writing. Like, I want to run home, leave my girls, and write. I want to write for 8 hours a day. Like, it was crazy. But that was connected to my purpose. And so because I wasn't fully walking in my purpose, because I'm a business person, I didn't see myself as a creative. So I was suffocating this huge part of my identity. Even this year wouldn't have been birthed out if I didn't step into that. And because I'm suffocating who I am, I'm grieving. There's death, there's suicidal ideation. So sometimes it's just unlocking these different aspects of who we are that will free us from those hardships, but we don't know, right? So, anyways. So, the next question that I had was there anyone you expected to be there for you during the hard times who was not, and how did that affect you and your worldview and your relationships with them?
I learned not to even expect no. You know what? I learned not to even, because you can't. You feel bad, and it feels like crap when somebody isn't there, and you're always the one helping everybody all the time. Like, ain't nobody checked on me. Like, you got all this advice, but ain't nobody gonna chip in nothing. Like, can you give me the number to the person you telling me to call that you don't know the name of? You know what I mean? Like, it's always, everybody thinks you're always okay. So it's just a downer to realize that no one can really be there. Half the people that weren't there for me on the worst time of my life was because I didn't tell them what was happening to me. My parents couldn't save me from Alcatraz. Alcatraz is my ex-marriage. They couldn't save me. No one knew. The only person who knew was at the very tail end was my sister, my oldest sister, because I'm the baby. I'm 4 girls, 2 boys. But my oldest sister was like, baby girl, one day you're going to get up and you're not going to be able to cry anymore. That's when it's time for you to move. Because I can't tell you when you're ready. That was the only thing that they were there for me for. Like, I couldn't really call anybody. I couldn't call my friends. I ain't had no dude to call. I ain't had no, you know what I'm saying? Like, no sugar daddy. I ain't never, like, it's like, all I have is the emotional support of some friends and family that's not so judging. They want to be like, yeah, I told you shouldn't have did. Like, I don't want to hear that. I know I messed up. You know I'm in a bad place. Like, don't kick me while I'm down and pour acid on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you don't really. So just not being able for anyone to really know fully what I was going through and the depth of it was hurtful, because I was still able to, no matter how shitty I felt, pour life into other people. And I think that's whatever kept me going too. Because it's just a disappointment of people that you just would hope be who they really were, but they weren't, and they showed you, people that owe you money, people put you in a bad spot, people don't show up. I don't have another book. I would have another book for you to edit if I made a list of the people that I hope show up. You know what I'm saying? They don't. Like, yeah, I could write another book. Y'all could buy that one and just read a list of names. But overall, it would just be in hopes that people see this, have the soul that they try to show you, and it's just hurtful that they're just not. And I had to realize, stop looking for that you can't expect love in the way you give it, because God is going to give you everything you need when you need it, the way you need it, not expect it. If I go to hug you, I can't expect you to be touchy-feely like I am, because I'm going to touch you, I'm going to hug you. I am. You can be mad at me next time and to run when I'm coming, but I'm going to hug you. But I can't expect everyone to be so affectionate as me. And I can't be mad at that. You're not me, and I'm not you. So I stopped looking for people to be there. It gets lonely as hell. It does. It's just lonely as shit on the top. It really is. But I don't look for it. So I guess that would be the disappointing part, because I have to look for it, and I don't have it. So.
Yeah, I kind of gonna piggyback off of you. That's been my most recent, I guess, bounce back situation. Is my dad. So I was pregnant all year long, and I thought my dad, my adopted dad. When I say mom, dad, they're my adopted parents. I don't call my biological parents my parents. I wasn't. Yes, I just want to, I just got it because it could be a little confusing. But, so he's been addicted to drugs and alcohol my whole entire life. I'm 31, probably even before that. And so he's been in and out of my life, in and out of jail, in and out of here, there, rehab, all these places. And I've always wanted him to be there. And he just has never really been in the way that I wanted to. And most recently, when I was pregnant, I realized that little girl in me has just been crying out for so long and never really been fulfilled with that love from her father. And that really almost broke me this past year, because it's very painful. I'm already dealing with my abandonment from my parents, and I got to deal with it from my, dad, from my biological parents, and I got to deal with it from my dad. And it was very heavy and very thick, and I just realized the same thing you said, like, nobody is going to love that little girl like God can. And that was very disappointing, even though, it's God, but that's still disappointing, because you want that love from your parents. You want also that celebration of you having a baby, you want your daddy, you want those type of things that you see, and I just had to realize that it wasn't going to come, and I had to be okay with that. And that was very discouraging, very disappointing to me. I've, talked on the phone to my friends here for hours about it in therapy, and my husband, I think that my dad has been the most recent, situation or person that I thought would be there for me that has not been, but I've been healing, because I'm not healed from it, I'm healing through just realizing that only God can really fill those places, and to also celebrate the people that are here. That was one thing my therapist kept telling me is, look at the people who did come to your shower. Look at the people who are supporting you. Well, he came to the shower, but, look at the people who are supporting you, things like that. And so I had to have to focus on those people and be reciprocal to those people instead of focusing on the negative and the loss.
So I love being down here at the end. I just feel like I just resonate so much with what both of you said, but doesn't it suck that is the common thing that we all have right now? Even so much to the point where Jenna said, I'll pass.
Right.
I don't even talk about it, because that's how disappointing this life has been. That no one has reciprocated what intuitive people are prepared and able to give. For me, it was my parents as well as my best friend. I mean, it's been everybody. I've always said, I wish I had a me in my life, but that's what I need. I need a me in my life. I need someone that's gonna show up without having to be asked. I need someone that's gonna, without having to be told, be there. Or someone's just gonna call, check in, hey girl, just trying to see how you doing. But then I also realize I don't give anybody that space to do that. I don't tell people what's going on with me. I could be at my lowest moment and you could be at your low moment and you will come to me with your shit and I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna talk to you like I ain't got nothing going on. You can tell me you're broke. I could be flat broke too. I'm not gonna tell you that. So it's like I never give people the opportunity to actually be there for me. So I guess in the sense of when I was at my lowest moment, I had caught my fiance in bed with another woman, and that was my lowest moment. But I didn't know who I could tell because I still loved him. I still wanted him in a sense. So it's like if I tell my mom and my daddy, they're not gonna like you. And if I tell my best friends, they're really not gonna like you. Who am I gonna tell? Who do I talk to? I didn't have a relationship with God. So who am I supposed to talk to? And then I had this expectation that everybody around me was supposed to notice that I was different. They're supposed to notice that I'm not smiling. They're supposed to notice that I'm not going to events and I'm not checking in on them. Like they're supposed to notice. They're supposed to say, hey, we're secret. And they're supposed to check on me. It never happened. And it was at my lowest point the last time that I was going to attempt suicide. And I didn't think I had anybody. And I actually ended up calling his mother. I called his mother. Told her what happened. Because you know what? You can't hate him. He's your son. So I'm going to call you. And the last person that I expected to be there for me was the only person that was there for me, and that was his mother. So it made it even more disappointing that when I went to my family and I told them like, hey, I need somebody, like I need something because this might be your last time hearing from me. They were like, well, check yourself in. That's what my parents said. And then my best friend just didn't even respond. I said, hey, can you come stay with me? She said, let me see what I can do and I'm gonna get back to you. She never got back with me. And so it was in those moments, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I love her to pieces. She was going through her own stuff too. So, you know, but she wasn't telling me either. So everybody's going through their own thing. You can't expect anybody to be there because once you start setting those expectations, you will always be disappointed. And I have been always disappointed because I always expected people to be like me. I always expected people to support, love, and give how I do. But now that I realize, and again, these are all just awakenings from turning 30. I don't know what happened. I woke up 30. So it's like all of this happened when I turned 30 because before it was I'm a Gemini. It was F you and click you cigarette. So now I'm like, you know what, grace.
Yeah.
So nobody has disappointed me because of the simple fact that how can you disappoint someone when they never told you what was going on? And then once I did finally open up and say, hey, you know, at this time I was losing my house, my man, and my mind. And it was like, oh, why didn't you say that? So, yeah, you can't have expectations on people. At any point in time, trust no man. Is that not what the Bible says? Like, trust no man. And not just a man, but any human. Like, because if you put your eggs into their basket and expect for them to show up how you expect them to show up because it's how you would show up, but you've never given them a crash course on how to be you, you're going to be disappointed.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing your truths. Since we brought this up, because I wasn't going to share this part, but fathers, there is a great book called Healing the Father Wound. And I have my own struggles with my relationship with my father, which is null and void at this point. But it's been a constant thorn in my side where I've tried and just had to realize, like, this is just not going to happen. And more recently, I had to reread that book, and I feel like I'm praying, like, Lord, why do you want me to reread this book? He's in my A, I'm cool. But I feel like the peace and healing that I received was understanding that I don't lack anything. Like, God showed up to me as my daddy. That's my Abba, and I am so blessed to have this supernatural, intimate understanding of that, especially since I had such a horrible earthly father. So for me to have this divine experience with the divine of an intimate father, but I still struggle because you still want that earthly, right? We're human. But once and I'm over 40, so who knows how long this takes. It took me a long time. But once I got that last revelation, it gave me more peace and healing. I'm not fully healed or whole, still on a journey like we all are. But it did give me more perspective of I don't lack anything. I have everything, right? I also want to share hope and encouragement because I have amazing women in my life. Amazing sisters. My mother only gave birth to me, but she prayed and my grandmother prayed that I would have real friends. Neither of them are here. I don't have a close blood family, but my friends are my family. Every hard thing I've gone through, they have been there, and I don't take that for granted. I think as female leaders, we can feel alone, but I've had the experience where you can find your tribe. You're right. Everybody can't always be there for you. I've had to learn what it looks like when I'm too dependent on one person, that's unhealthy, that I have these unhealthy expectations for one person to always be there or do this and do that. But we can have a tribe and have reciprocal healthy relationships because that is my testimony. So I want to give us hope in that regard.
Can I say something to that really quick too?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put her on the spot. But this is my girl. Like, this is my first probably healthy female relationship, and we've been friends for like 6 years now. I didn't tell, and I don't tell people things like, we all just keep things to ourselves. I didn't physically tell anyone that I was gonna do this panel. And she asked me, I think you asked me, what am I doing or something like that, and I told her I was doing this, and she was like, oh, I'll come. This was like yesterday. She was like, oh, I'll come. I was like, you will? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm so terrible. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it, but she literally dropped everything, or not dropped everything, but just made it happen that she could come tonight, and I just told her about this yesterday. So I definitely want to echo that because I think a lot of times society, we always hear these messages that you can't have real girlfriends and all this toxic stuff, but I just want to second that you can, and if you pray for it, and if you pray for it, God will send it to you. And yeah, I just want to echo that because it's true.
And I appreciate what Secret said, just taking ownership. Like, but am I being open? I flow the same way as Secret. I'll be going through my own thing, but I'm so compassionate that I'm like, I'm gonna be there for you. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we do have a responsibility to be open, and maybe